Okay, this is an introduction to the Anvil of Fate, which is the Battle of Montelimar in 1944. This is at the end of Operation Dragoon, which was the invasion of southern France. This is a battle that is pretty much forgotten in history, like everything to do with Operation Dragoon and stuff like that. What basically how is happening here is the Americans have an opportunity to bag the entire German 19th Army, which is retreating from southern France. There's a task group or task force that's been set up, Task Force Butler, whose job it is to sever the road connections between the German forces and the escape route into northern western France, and then possibly even on to Germany, because things are getting pretty desperate for the Germans at this stage. Now, what happened historically was it was a bit of a 50-50. It's a meeting engagement, and you'll see what I mean by that in a minute. And both sides inflicted casualties on each other, but neither side achieved a strategic victory. Like the Germans have managed to evacuate a large proportion of their army out of the southern France area, and the Americans managed to trap a considerable number of units and force them to surrender. But this was almost like the southern version of the Falaise Gap, yet it was nowhere near as successful. Now, units in the battle, there are various elements of the American 26th Infantry Division, the American 3rd Infantry Division, the American 45th Infantry Division, Task Force Butler, and there is even a French unit here. Now, I don't know whether they're always in it, I'd have to check that. But there are three French units that are deployed on the board here. The only other units that are on the board at the start of the game is Task Force Butler, which is arriving in that hex over there. Now right, that's just a second. If you look at you'll see these discs over here, the red discs represent 5-point victory hexes, and the yellows 3 points, and the greens 1 point. And these are important on accumulating victory conditions. To be quite honest, I always play these battles for a historical purpose. I'm not really one who's going to spend all his time trying to get a couple of victory points just to win at the end. I'm playing this for historical purposes to see whether I can actually entrap the entire German 19th Army here, which is possible. Now, historically, the Allies grabbed these positions here, these hills, two strategic hills here, and also this pass, or whatever you pronounce that as, Condulet Pass, I don't know. Anyway, they have other options though. They could actually try and cut the Germans at Montpellier. The thing doing that is you're exposing yourself to large German concentrations and it's open ground. Whereas this, I will go for the historical defensive positions where you've got a bit of high ground and forests and things, and narrow sort of tracks that can be inflated. And also the road is very difficult there. It goes right next, well, I say road, yeah, the road and the railway. They go right next to these forested uplands here, so that can be cut. You've also got the option of, if you could try and cut the supply lines way up to the north, but as people have said, doing that, it gives the Germans 90% of the map. It gives them a lot more flexibility to do operational movements which will sweep round your flank or something like that. it's not a good idea to concede that much ground to the German player. Historically, the Germans, they had all this territory they could have gone out to the east to try and flank the Allied positions, but they didn't really try and do that. They historically tried to batter their way straight through Task Force Butler and avoid the other American units coming on to actually make their retreat really difficult. Just thinking, in terms of a game, it must be the simplest setup of a major map that I've ever seen. Well, it is. There's nothing even comparable to it for the simplicity of setup. One thing I will say is this: I've had to mess around with my board. I've had to increase the area of this map is roughly, I think it's 5 by 5. Well, it's not far off. So it's an unusual configuration, and it's caused me problems even down here. It would fit upstairs on my other table, but I don't like playing in that spare room. I don't know. It's just a personal thing. I prefer playing down here. Okay. Anything else to say? Yes, there is. An important thing to say. If you have this game and you haven't opened the box yet and had a look at it, do it. Because you see my copy here, the counters are misaligned. There's 2 counter sheets that have misalignment. This one here is really bad. It cuts off the top of the unit, so you don't know what your unit designations are. Now what I've done is I've contacted Compass Games, and they're sending me some replacement counter sheets from America, but they haven't arrived here yet. Hopefully they'll arrive before I start needing to deploy these divisions. It's the first German units don't actually arrive on the board till at the first turn of the night. So I've probably not said that this is a combat. This is a company scale system game from Compass Games. So as I said, I played Guam, but I didn't like the theatre and the nature of the fighting on Guam. So this is a nice open game with a meeting engagement where there's 2 sides that are roughly equal, and they're just going to go head to head. The Germans' objective is to get units off the top and exit them off the board in the north there, and the Allies' objective is to just smash the Germans, bottle them up, and prevent them from escaping. Okay, not a huge number of days here. 9 days, I think that is. Yeah, which is a lot. Oh, I suppose it is a lot. It's the same number of days as Devil's Cauldron, but I'm not sure. There's a lot of divisions here. I'd say there's going to be less counters than Devil's Cauldron, but not a huge deal less. This one's more manageable than Guam in terms of special rules, because you haven't got all the stuff for banzai attacks, caves, Japanese ambushes, quite a few rules very specific to Guam that aren't going to be in here. And actually, if you're looking at it, the scenario book is actually thicker than the rule book. So let's hope this one's a good one after the disappointment of, well, me being stupid enough to try and play Solana, Death Ride Solana.